Guess what? Discover's accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
Gretch, May is just such a time of celebrations. And I know for us, when we're going to host a celebration or take something to a celebration, I always go to Whole Foods Market.
Yes, Whole Foods Market helps you save on everything you need with the quality and ingredient standards that we expect. One thing we love to do in the summer is grill, and the house brand of Whole Foods Market, 365 by Whole Foods Market, has all the essential at daily low prices that you need for the summer. Save on May celebrations with great everyday prices at Whole Foods Market.
Lemonada.
Hello, we're here for More Happier, a podcast where we talk about how to get happier. Join us for some weekend listening, observations, and reflections with a looser vibe. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hi, Gretch.
Today we'll talk about an interesting question for thinking about our past and a Know Yourself Better question inspired by Stephen King. But first, something making us happier. Elizabeth, what's making you happier?
Gretch, Mom and Dad's recent trip to Paris has made me so happy. They had such a good time. I love that Mom was just sending so many pictures and videos. So I felt like we were there. I think she was inspired by us because remember, we sent so many videos from our trip to England, our walking trip, which was so great.
Yeah.
And so she started doing that. I mean, the video of Dad eating the chocolate souffle was my favorite. But it just is so nice to see them out and about in Paris.
You know, one thing I really respect about them is they really have figured out public transportation. They are going all over the place.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, when they're in a new city, don't challenge themselves to figure it out. But you feel so free when you can do it. Yeah, it was so fun just to get the daily weather report. Sometimes I would look at them and find in my phone just to see all of the French terms and where they were. Yeah, I feel like I got a vicarious vacation myself.
Yeah, and you know something that they did, which I want to do in a city, is before they left, they got a book called Walking Tours of Paris. And they, self-guided, but they would pick a neighborhood and then do a walk through it. And the book would say, here are good restaurants and shops to go to. And I thought, well, that's such a fun, different way to explore a city than just going to this museum, that museum sort of destination, but to just explore different neighborhoods.
Well, and that's really what they said. Like they'd been there before, they'd done a lot of that, and they wanted just to explore the city. I mean, Paris is famous for being one of the most beautiful cities in the world. There's so much interesting things to see, like anywhere you go. But you realize that you probably are very much limited in what you're exploring. So I thought that was great too, that they were like, let's get out of the places that we might usually go or that we've been in the past and really push ourselves. Well, one thing that was really good too is they had great weather, because one time they went on a trip and it rained. And as Mom always says, rain is almost the worst if you're running around a city. Snow is easier than rain. And so every time they travel, I think, okay, is it going to rain? And it rained the first day. And I remember I texted her, it's always good when it's the first day, because let's remember when we were in England, it rained that first day and we had on our pants and our jackets and our hoods and everything. And then we were sort of braced for it. And then every day that it did not rain, we really appreciated it. Whereas I think if it had never rained that first day, you take the weather for granted. You don't appreciate that you have a good day.
True.
So I think it's actually nice if it rains the first day, because then if it doesn't rain later, you feel the lift of it.
So Mom and Dad's trip to Paris has made me a lot happier. How about you, Gretch? What's making you happier?
So as one of my items on my 25 for 25 list is I have do a watercolor every single day in 2025. Now, as registered, I gave myself taffy time and took 2 weeks off because I was like, okay, that's just going to overwhelm my circuits. I can't do it. But speaking of not having what you want, making you appreciate what you want, taking that break actually reminded me of how much I really do enjoy this daily practice of watercolor. And I really did miss it. And it really was fun to like sit back and get out my brushes and everything. But Another thing that I did that reminded me of how much fun this is, because I've talked about the fact that I'm doing this watercoloring every day. A friend of mine who lives outside of New York City was like, hey, I'm coming to New York City because I'm doing this one-day workshop called Sketch and Paint Brooklyn with this teacher, Samantha Dion Baker. Would you be interested in doing it? And I was like, yes, I would. That sounds fantastic. I love a one-day workshop. And so it was in Dumbo. Again, beautiful weather. That's the district under the Manhattan Bridge overpass or something like that. Anyway, there's like a giant bridge overhead. It was very dramatic. Extremely New York City. It was just so fun. I got to hang out with a friend. We used a kind of material that I had never used before. We got outside and went sketching. I had interesting conversations with people from all over the country. It got me just sort of outside of my usual routine, but in a very manageable way. Like I could just take the subway there and take the subway home, even though I think only a few people lived close to the class. A lot of people came from very far away to attend it. I was so glad she asked me to do it. It was such an adventure, and it took me into this identity of being somebody who does watercolor.
Now you're back to your everyday watercoloring.
Now I'm back, and it feels really good. For someone like me who really is all or nothing and loves familiarity and routine, it is very grounding to have that back in my day. And again, like I have a very low bar for what counts. So some days, especially now with Taffy, it's a very, very low bar of what counts, but I'm still doing it. And so, yeah, I'm really happy about that.
Good. All right, coming up, there's something that Gretchen's been meaning to ask me, but first, this break.
Hey, Julia Louis-Dreyfus here. If you listen to me on my Wiser Than Me podcast, you probably already know that I'm an investor and an evangelist for the Mill Food Recycler. There are a lot of reasons to love Mill, but for me, it's all about the impact. Keeping food out of the garbage is one of the most powerful things we can do to help the planet every single day. We're talking banana peels, carrot tops, old takeout. When that stuff heads to the landfill, it becomes a huge driver of climate change. If you already compost, great. But of course, there's the smell, the flies, the running to the curb every day with a little leaking compost bag made of cornstarch. That's where Mill comes in. It makes keeping food out of the trash as easy as dropping it in. It can handle nearly anything, from a turkey carcass to like 20 avocado pits. It works automatically while you sleep. You can keep filling it for weeks, and it never, ever smells. Mill makes dry, nutrient-rich grounds that you can use in your garden, add to your compost, feed to your chickens, or Mill can get them back to a small farm for you. But you kind of have to live with Mill to really get it, and that's why they offer a risk-free trial. Go to mill.com/wiser for an exclusive offer.
Gretch, we talk all the time about how important it is to get a good night's sleep. Well, I think I have figured out the hack to getting my perfect night's sleep, and it starts with my adjustable pillows from Coop Sleep Goods. I have the Eden adjustable, which keeps me cool, and I absolutely love it, Gretchen. Literally, when I go to sleep at night and I put my head on that pillow, I think about how much I love this pillow. It's taken the place. I used to have 2 pillows that I didn't like. Now I have 1 pillow that I love.
Well, after all, we spend a third of our lives in bed, so it really helps to get a pillow that's customized. Coop Sleep Goods has a sleep quiz that makes it very easy for listeners to find the perfect pillow for them. Visit coopsleepgoods.com/happier to get 20% off your first order. That's COOP sleepgoods.com/happier. Okay, listen, I started thinking about this question for myself, and I thought it was really interesting to think about and to think about the implications of it. And so I want to ask you the same question, which is, outside of your family, our family, what is your longest continuous relationship? By this, I mean somebody who is still in your life. Maybe you're not seeing them once a month, but you're in contact with them. Like you have a vague sense of what they're doing. You communicate from time to time. You would say like, yes, I am in touch with that person. Who from your life was the first who's still there?
Well, I'm thinking of a couple of people. There was my friend Krista from, I think, preschool. Now, we comment on each other's social media posts, so I know what she's up to. I know what her kids are up to, but I haven't actually spoken to her in years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're counting social media, I would say Krista.
Okay, so that's social media only.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one kind of continuous. So there could be many flavors of this. So that's one flavor. It's somebody that you're following them on social media, so you have that awareness, but you're not directly communicating or seeing each other face to face. Okay.
And then I think our family friend Emily, Gretchen, I met her the day we moved into our house on Stratford. She lived across the street. And I was trying to remember if I was 5 or 4 or 6 when we moved in.
Yeah.
But whatever that day was, I met Emily, and she is someone who has been in my life and I've either talked to, seen, or texted with throughout.
Yes. Well, in fact, when our parents were in town recently in New York City, Emily came and we all had lunch. And we're friends with her mother because they were just these great neighbors that we loved so much. And so she's somebody who's been in all of our lives continuously.
Yes.
Right. But so, yeah, that's way back to when you were 5. That's right. Or maybe even 4. Yeah. When we moved into that house. Wow.
And then, Gretch, I think my friend Kim, who I knew, I believe, from first grade on, and I see her periodically at reunions, at funerals, unfortunately. So she's been in my life for almost the whole time. And then when I look at 4th grade, Gretchen, that's when I switched schools. There are dozens of people who I still know and still see and still talk to. I mean, I couldn't even count them all.
Okay. So it's interesting to think of your life as like being almost like in layers, and some layers are thin and some layers are very thick.
Yes.
That's interesting. I wonder if we didn't move that much. We didn't move far. I wonder for people who moved a lot, that would be interesting how they manage that.
Yes. And I think it goes to maybe because we didn't move a lot, you and I have both talked about being tree people where we like continuity. I'm very uncomfortable with like dropping people or dropping things. So it makes sense.
Research shows that we really do value relationships. Relationships are such an incredibly important element to a happy life. And people we know how important relationships are. And, you know, sometimes you hear talk about like, oh, why do people stay friends with people who really aren't good for them or whatever? And it's because there is a lot of pain in ending a relationship. It's a big deal to end a relationship. And so I think just as it's a big deal to end a relationship, it's really valuable to think about like, well, who have I hung on to?
Right.
Because maybe if you don't stop and reflect, you don't realize like, wow, that's pretty amazing that somebody who was your next door neighbor when you were 4 years old is still somebody that your whole family is excited to see decades later. It's cool.
Yes. How about you?
Well, mine is very clear. It's my friend Carrie. So my friend Carrie, we went to kindergarten together, and I have a small group of high school friends where we do sort of these mini reunions. And I've seen her there on those. Her parents moved away from Kansas City when she was an adult. And so she doesn't go back to Kansas City. And I haven't seen her at a reunion or anything like that, but I have seen her otherwise. I was actually college roommates with her sister, but her sister I haven't seen forever. I follow her on social media. But this is making me think, wow, I really want to see more of Carrie and I want to see more of Jenna. But you and I both switched to a school in 4th grade. We didn't switch at the same time since we're 5 years apart, but in 4th grade. And from 4th grade, I have many people also that I'm in contact with. But, you know, people often will they're very down on social media and say social media is terrible. It has all these terrible effects on us. But I do think that a positive of it is that it makes it easier to stay in touch on this very low level with many people from our past. My whole thing of like, is it a bug or a feature? And some people are like, this is a bug. I don't want to be in touch with all these people that I knew in high school. It's the last thing I want. But I actually want that. I like that. I like having a sense of what people are up to, or just feeling like it's not that they're close friends, but they still matter to me. They're still part of my past. I'm still interested. And I like the fact that I'm not going to write them a postcard and get a postcard back, but I can still follow along in this very light way. And it makes me feel connected to my past. And, this is my thing is I always feel like, because my memory is so bad, I don't want to feel like I'm getting detached from the past or that I've forgotten the past. So I like this low touch because it makes me feel like my life is coherent and things from the past still connect to things in the present.
Yeah, I agree. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Gretch, what is this week's spotlight on a tool?
Well, it is springtime here in the United States, and at least in my neighborhood, there is so much to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, to touch. Having a puppy makes you realize I'm seeing and smelling things and hearing things in a whole new way. And if you are interested in your senses, but you're wondering which of your 5 senses might be the sense that you most neglect, you can take my quiz and all my other quizzes at happiercast.com/quiz. And the reason why the neglected sense quiz is interesting is that if you have a sense that you really appreciate, you're probably taking advantage of that sense already. You're doing things to enjoy it or learn about it or share it with other people, exploring it. But if it's a neglected sense, you probably have a lot of low-hanging fruit. There's like a lot of fun things that you could do to tap into that sense once it's pointed out to you. That quiz, I sort of went bonkers with making just the quiz itself a beautiful experience because it just seemed appropriate for having a 5 senses quiz. So that is a particularly fun quiz, I would say, to take.
Yes, and I just while you were talking, I was thinking my neglected sense, as yours is taste.
Yeah.
And that made me decide I was going to add having some pineapple Dole Whip to my summer of yacht rock that we were talking about recently.
Now, where does one buy that?
Well, it used to be, I think, only at Disneyland, but now you can get it other places. So it's been on my mind.
Well, we had that at the Missouri State Fair when we were little.
Yes, that would be the kind of place that would have it. But I think it's gotten a little wider now.
Okay, okay.
Well, it's going to be my quest
Okay.
for my taste for the summer.
Yacht rock and pineapple Dole Whip. That sounds very, very appealing.
It does.
Okay.
Okay, Gretch, coming up, there's something I've been meaning to ask you, but first, this break.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, Elizabeth, as somebody who studies happiness, one thing that makes me very happy is that I do believe that societal views about therapy have evolved throughout the years, that people are much more aware of the advantages of therapy. That's true, but there is still progress to be made. 26% of Americans who participated in a recent survey say that they've avoided seeking mental health support due to fear of judgment.
Well, Gretchen, you know, I have benefited so much from therapy. I say all the time, I don't think I'd have my career if it weren't for therapy. I love therapy. And BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient, serving over 5 million people worldwide. Plus, you can easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. We're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/Gretchen Rubin to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gretchen Rubin. Let's talk about the Defender 110. It is a vehicle built for the modern explorer. Gretch, I have a friend who's extremely adventurous and she loves her Defender 110. It's a vehicle that looks tough because it is tough. The Defender boasts an exterior design for optimum durability. It has a raised hood and sculpted grille that give the Defender 110 a modern edge.
Yeah, it has 3D surround cameras with clear sight ground view that let you see underneath the vehicle and anticipate obstacles in rough terrain. Clear sight rear view offers an unobstructed rear view even when you can't see through the back window. Driver aid technologies make driving and parking simpler. Intuitive driver displays are customizable to your journey. Design your Defender 110 at LandRoverUSA.com. Visit LandRoverUSA.com to learn more about the Defender 110. Explore the Defender 110 at LandRoverUSA.com.
Okay, Gretch, we're back. There's something I've been meaning to ask you. I'm inspired by the slow read that Sarah and I did of On Writing, a memoir of the craft by Stephen King. The book is partly about how Stephen King became Stephen King. So he talks about how he grew up, and he has a lot of grotesque things that happened in his life that sort of you can see a direct line to then some of the horror he's written. But Sarah and I started thinking, or is it vice versa? Is it that because Stephen King has the mind that he has, when he looks back on his childhood, he sees things in this grotesque horror type way? And if one looks at one's life through the lens of a certain author, do you see different things?
I see. So it's like, do all of these experiences make someone into somebody like Stephen King? Or is it the fact that Stephen King is telling this story make a childhood sound a certain way?
Yes.
But somebody else with a very different perspective might have like characterized the same experiences differently or even focused on completely different experiences altogether.
Yes. And it made me realize that if I think of my past through the lens of a certain author, different memories arise, which is cool. It's a really cool way.
Ooh, like what?
Well, like for instance, if I think of my past through the lens of Stephen King, I remember this experience I had getting a bunch of warts removed from my hand in third grade.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. I mean, and it was a bunch. This is not 3. This is like all
it was
over
like
your hands.
20.
Yes.
All over my hands. The doctor was not good. Mom later referred to him as a butcher. And I think of that. I could see Stephen King writing about that.
Now, do I remember that then they were daubed with some kind of purple?
Yes.
Yeah, when you came home. Right. Yes.
It was horrible. So that would be a Stephen King memory. But if I think about my life through the lens of Jane Austen,
right.
I think of doing the pace setters where young boys and girls got together to learn to dance.
Yeah.
Or I would think of a cookie exchange party that we had every year that Anne Rippey gave.
Yes.
So different memories come to the surface, and I think that's so fun.
I think that's tremendously fun. Thinking about the childhood, we grew up with, I would say, a very suburban, classic childhood. And I look back on that with tremendous fondness. There's a lot about it that to me felt right and very appealing. And then I think of authors like John Cheever or John Updike, who are very well known for their dark visions of suburbia and like, the seething passions and the deadening weight and all that. And I'm like, yeah, you could probably tell the story of our upbringing, just give it a very different cast than the one. But here's my question for you, Elizabeth. Now that we're doing the slow read of War and Peace, are you starting to see your own life through kind of a War and Peace lens? I feel that it is leaking into my self-talk or like my self-perception. Are you having that?
That's interesting you say that. I am being very aware of little pieces of human nature because I feel like that is the Tolstoy thing, right? He just nails human nature and every kind of person there is.
Yes.
And it's made me really aware of human nature.
No, it's just like the way that there'll be a gesture and it'll be like, and he gestured tiredly to blah, blah. And then, yes, that's exactly right. Where you're sort of like, how would he describe this particular moment or this particularly expression on somebody's face or this exchange? Because it's always like, what's going on underneath the surface? Or like, what is somebody not recognizing that the narrator is telling us about? Oh, that's so fun.
But Gretchen, I wanted to ask you, when you look at your past through the Stephen King lens, is there a memory that comes to mind?
Well, I think one of my most terrifying memories was, I think I must have been like 8 or 10 years old. This is kind of amazing, but I flew to Chicago by myself to visit a childhood friend who had moved from Kansas City to Chicago, Hillary. And on the last day I was there, I walked with her to the bus stop so she could go to school. And then the idea was like, I would just walk home. But I didn't pay any attention to how we got to the bus stop. Like, I just didn't know enough, like, oh, you have to pay attention. So I started walking back and I got completely lost. And so there I was in one of the suburbs of Chicago, this very nice residential area. And I was utterly lost. I didn't know the address of the house and I didn't know what to do. So I remember I went up to a door and like knocked on it. And it was like a man answered it and he just took one look at me and shut the door. Like, ugh, I don't even want to hear it. And so then I was too scared. This is why someplace like New York City feels safer to me now because there's people all around. Or you could just go into a store and ask a shopkeeper.
Yes.
But there was nobody on the street. And I just remember walking and just thinking, and of course it was foolish. I should have stood in one place instead of wandering off. I don't even know if I would recognize the house. Like I wasn't paying attention. Just feeling this thing like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I can remember seeing down the street her mother walking in and her mother lifting her arms like, oh my gosh, there you are. And just the relief that flooded through me. But it was unforgettable And I feel like in the hands of Stephen King,
Yes.
maybe worse things would have happened to me, which is like nothing happened to me. I was fine. And I learned a very important lesson, which that doesn't happen to me now. But yeah, I think that's something that I could tell the story of like the leaves scuttling along the sidewalk and like the gray sky and just the feeling of being so lost and so alone.
Wow. I've never heard that story. So
there you go.
See, right here, Gretch, we've brought up a memory.
We've brought up a
new memory that I never heard by doing this exercise.
That's
I think it's a really fun exercise.
Right. What would Judy Blume say about my childhood?
Yes.
Yeah. But here, this reminds me of one of my favorite quotations from Stephen King, and it really goes to his imagination, because you're sort of like, is Stephen King, is he his imagination? Is he his experience? And I think this is a very interesting reflection that he makes about his own work. On writing, because I've read it many times myself, it's such a good book, he wrote, and about his childhood, he writes, a block down the hill, not far from Teddy's Market and across from Burritt's Building Materials, was a huge, tangled wilderness area with a junkyard on the far side and a train track running through the middle. This is one of the places I keep returning to in my imagination. It turns up in my books and stories again and again, under a variety of names. So for Stephen King, he picked that from his childhood, and that was one of the things that he took forward.
And that is not surprising.
Yeah. And here's a final thing. Okay. I thought this was a hilarious way to like reframe a situation. We love a reframing. Okay. So a friend of mine, lovely person, who I've known for decades and is still in my life now, has truly terrible in-laws. I mean, really, really bad in-laws. And they made her bonkers, as really difficult in-laws will do. And then she hit on what I thought was a brilliant strategy. So she's somebody who's very interested in all kinds of creative writing, and she loves Neil Simon. And Neil Simon is a playwright who's very known for writing family stories that are funny, but touch the heart and super popular. And she said, I decided that I would imagine my in-laws and observe them as if I were going to use them as fodder to write a Neil Simon play. So whatever they, and I'm going to take notes, and like whatever they do, this is just going to go into my Neil Simon play. So she was perceiving her own experiences as if she was going to then translate them to the stage. And she said it immediately changed everything, because the worse they were, the better it was. Because she's like, this is amazing material. This is going to be an amazing scene. No one's going to believe this. Who could have made this up?
Yeah.
And so she said it really allowed her to have a sense of humor, have a sense of perspective, like see it. Because she's like, if Neil Simon was telling the story of my in-laws, it would be a very different story than the story that I'm experiencing.
Yes.
So I will tell myself that story.
That is a brilliant idea. Others should try this.
Yes.
This is a great idea.
I have heard of like, I think it was a story, maybe it was from a listener, like it was like 3 sisters, and then they would all compare notes on who had the worst in-laws, like at Thanksgiving, and it was the worst they were, like you wanted them to be as bad as possible so you would win.
Funny. Well, you and I both have delightful in-laws, so we would not win that contest. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but I thought that was a very fun way to reframe.
I love it. Okay, finally, Gretch, what is our quotation this week?
This comes from Adam Smith, The Theory of Moral Sentiments. He writes, nothing is more graceful than habitual cheerfulness, which is always founded upon a particular relish for all the little pleasures which common occurrences afford.
Very true.
And so, Elizabeth, are you feeling happier?
Yes, I am feeling happier. Thank you to Chuck. Bye, Gretch.
Bye, Elizabeth. The best time to start a happiness project is 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Hey, Gretchen and Liz, remember you were talking about everybody has a secret food that they like to hide or keep secret? I realized I had one. I keep my potato chips on the top shelf in the back so my kids don't get them.
Oh.
So I can have them at lunch, being a little hypocritical because I also don't want them eating potato chips.
Your secret stash of chips.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, now, Chuck, when I'm at your house, I know where to find the potato chips.
Yes. Walk in the pantry, reach high.
From the Onward Project.